think opening doors and tipping your hat to ladies is probably a thing of the past, Dick.
There aren't many names in Hollywood history that loom larger than John Wayne. He was one of the most iconic leading men of his generation, a towering symbol of grit, masculinity, and the American West. To millions of fans, there was nobody quite like him. But behind the legend, behind the cowboy hat and the slow, commanding drawl, there was a much darker story. John Wayne left more than fame behind him. He also left pain, betrayal, and misery in the lives of the women who loved him. His first wife walked away after discovering he had been sleeping with his female co-stars. His third wife became addicted to sleeping pills and later tried to take her own life. But it was his second wife who endured the most disturbing fate of all. So buckle up, because we're diving into the dark history of John Wayne, the man the world knew as the Duke.
I don't squawk and cry baby and say, geez, I had to go without meals when I was 16 and 17 years old. It's a terrible thing.
John Wayne seemed larger than life from the moment he entered the world. He was born in 1907 in Winterset, Iowa, under the name Marion Robert Morrison. And even as a newborn, he somehow managed to make headlines. According to the local paper, the Winterset Madisonian, baby Marion weighed a staggering 13 pounds at birth. It was an adorable little news item at the time, but as the years passed, Wayne would make many more headlines, and not all of them would be nearly as charming. Now we have to pause on something important. John Wayne's real name was Marion. And if that sounds strange for a man who would later become the ultimate tough cowboy, you're not the only one who thought so. Wayne himself hated it. From a young age, he was deeply insecure about what he saw as a feminine name, and he wanted nothing to do with it. So instead, he started going by Duke, a nickname that felt stronger, rougher, and far more fitting for the image he wanted to build. Even as a boy, Duke Morrison was an ardent patriot. He dreamed of serving his country, and when the time came, he applied to the United States Naval Academy. But there was one major problem. His grades were terrible. The Academy rejected him, and Wayne was crushed. With that dream slipping away, he enrolled at USC and studied pre-law. But even that path was more of a fallback than a passion. And unfortunately for Wayne, college didn't go much better than his Naval Academy plans. He wasn't exactly a dedicated student, and the only reason he was able to attend USC was because of an athletic scholarship. But then disaster struck. Wayne broke his collarbone, could no longer play football, and lost the scholarship that was keeping him there. With no money, no degree, and no clear future, he was forced to leave school.
Maybe I read the wrong dictionary, but I thought that a liberal was a man who would listen to everybody's point of view and then make up his mind what he was going to do.
But USC still gave him one thing that would change his life forever. His football coach, Howard Jones, had connections in Hollywood. Some of the biggest stars in the business were USC fans, and they often came to Jones looking for game tickets. One of them was movie star Tom Mix. When Mix asked for tickets, Jones made a deal. He would help Mix if Mix gave Duke Morrison a job. Just like that, Duke's life began moving in a completely different direction. He eventually became John Wayne, though the name change wasn't exactly his own idea. A studio helped shape him into the man audiences would come to know, and honestly, it was probably the right call. Marion Morrison may not have sounded like a box office cowboy, but John Wayne certainly did. Would you ever change your name for Hollywood? Let me know in the comments. At first, Wayne was just a prop boy. He wasn't a star, he wasn't famous, and he wasn't even close to becoming the legend people remember today. But after dropping out of college and losing his scholarship, he was simply grateful to be working. Then one day, while wandering around the studio lot, he crossed paths with one of the most famous lawmen in American history, Wyatt Earp. Earp was close friends with Tom Mix and spent a great deal of time around movie sets. Wayne later claimed that much of his screen persona came from observing Earp, studying the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, and the quiet confidence he projected. That chance encounter helped shape the image Wayne would later sell to the world. But Wyatt Earp wasn't the only person Wayne was bumping into on those studio lots. As his Hollywood journey began, another powerful force entered his life: women.
True, I think they do have a right to more rights, but it isn't a thing where the rest of the country should feel terribly guilty.
And before long, that would become one of his greatest weaknesses. As John Wayne's career slowly began to take off, his love life did too. Around 1926, the young Duke Morrison was stepping into a world filled with fame, temptation, and beautiful actresses. And he was nowhere near prepared for the damage that world would eventually bring. It all started with what should have been a simple date. John Wayne went out with a young woman named Carmen Science, but the chemistry just wasn't there. The spark he was hoping for never quite ignited. Still, the evening wasn't a total loss, because someone else in the room had caught his attention. Carmen's younger sister, Josephine, who was just 16 at the time, immediately drew Wayne in. Wayne had always been a hopeless romantic, the kind of man who fell fast and hard, and this time was no different. From the moment he noticed Josephine, he was captivated. But their connection didn't exactly come with a warm welcome. The Science family came from wealth and status, and the idea of their daughter ending up with a struggling, rough-around-the-edges country boy like Wayne was nothing short of horrifying to them. In their eyes, he simply didn't belong. That didn't stop him. If anything, it pushed him harder.
But I don't know of any of these so-called liberals that listen to anything but their own mouth.
Wayne was determined to prove himself, to show that he could be more than just a poor kid trying to make it in Hollywood. He wanted to be worthy of Josephine, and he knew exactly what he needed to make that happen: a big break. And as it turned out, that break was closer than he realized. By now, we all know John Wayne as a full-blown movie star, a larger-than-life figure who dominates the screen. But back then, he was just another guy trying to get noticed. That changed when director Raoul Walsh spotted him moving furniture on set. There was something about Wayne, his presence, his size, the way he carried himself, that stood out. Walsh saw it instantly. Without hesitation, he cast Wayne in the lead role of his upcoming film, The Big Trail.
And he said, but let me give you some advice. He said, talk low, talk slow, and don't say too effing much.
It should have been the moment everything changed overnight. His name was above the title, he had the spotlight, and it looked like stardom was finally within reach. But Hollywood doesn't always work that way. Even with a leading role, Wayne wasn't an instant sensation. He still had to grind, to prove himself the hard way. Throughout the 1930s, Wayne appeared in nearly 80 low-budget westerns. 80. That's not the kind of workload people imagine when they think of glamorous movie stardom. It was relentless, exhausting, and often thankless work. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. In those countless roles, Wayne began to find himself. He wasn't interested in playing the clean-cut, perfect heroes that audiences were used to. Those characters felt too polished, too unrealistic. Wayne had spent time around real men like Wyatt Earp, and he knew the truth. Cowboys weren't saints. They were rough, unpredictable, and sometimes downright ruthless. So Wayne brought that edge to the screen. His characters fought dirty. They threw punches that bent the rules. They kicked their enemies when they were already down. And no matter what, they always came out on top. It was something audiences had never quite seen before, and they couldn't get enough of it. John Wayne wasn't just becoming a star. He was redefining what a Western hero could be. But just as his career was gaining real momentum, history intervened. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, pulling the United States into World War II. For a man like Wayne, who had grown up dreaming of serving his country, this felt like his moment, his chance to finally prove himself. He rushed to enlist, ready to do his part. But instead of acceptance, he was met with a crushing reality. Wayne was considered too old to serve. Just like that, the dream he had carried for years was taken away. It became a quiet, lingering shame he carried with him for the rest of his life, a sense that when his country needed him most, he wasn't there. At the same time, his personal life was beginning to unravel. Wayne had married Josephine Sayens back in 1933, back when he was still fighting to make a name for himself. But by the 1940s, everything had changed. He was no longer the struggling actor trying to prove his worth. He was a rising star with endless demands on his time. Work consumed him. Long days on set turned into long nights away from home, and Josephine found herself seeing less and less of her husband. The distance between them kept growing, but even that wasn't the worst of it, because while Wayne was absent, he was also unfaithful.
He said, because I just told you, you're going to be a star, kid. He said, and you're going to be in a gent's toilet taking a pee. He said, and the guy next to you is going to be taking a pee. He's going to look and he's going, Michael Caine.
In 1940, while filming Seven Sinners, Wayne became involved in one of the most intense and destructive affairs of his life. His co-star was none other than Marlene Dietrich, a woman who embodied everything Hollywood had to offer: glamour, confidence, danger. Dietrich reportedly took one look at Wayne and immediately saw what she wanted. Leaning toward the director, she famously said, "Daddy, buy me that." It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't meant to be. Wayne, now fully immersed in the world of fame and temptation, found himself pulled into her orbit. Back home, he had a wife and 3 children, but compared to the electrifying presence of Dietrich, that life began to feel distant, almost unreal. She offered him a version of Hollywood he had only ever dreamed about, and it was intoxicating. John Wayne was completely taken with Marlene Dietrich. She wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic. She had that rare combination of elegance and unpredictability. One moment she could appear effortlessly glamorous, and the next, she'd be right beside him at a football game or joining him on a rugged hunting trip. She fit into every part of his world, and for Wayne, that was irresistible. But while he was caught up in the thrill of it all, things at home were quietly falling apart. One day, Wayne returned to find a stranger sitting in his house. The man introduced himself as Father McCoy. Josephine had invited him there in a last-ditch attempt to save their marriage. By then, she knew the truth. The affairs, the lies, the distance. None of it was a secret anymore. And Dietrich wasn't the only woman, not even close. Josephine begged him to change, to come back to the life they had built together. But the damage was already too deep. There was no fixing what had been broken over years of betrayal. In 1945, their marriage officially ended, and by that point, Wayne had already emotionally moved on. Not long after, another woman entered his life, one who would bring chaos on a completely different level. He didn't know it yet, but this relationship would come dangerously close to ending in violence. The moment Wayne saw Esperanza Bauer, whom he affectionately called Chata, he was hooked. There was an intensity about her, something fiery and unpredictable that pulled him in immediately. At the time, he was still married to Josephine, but meeting Chata was the final blow to that already crumbling relationship. Chata didn't exactly try to stay hidden either. She would call Wayne directly at home, the same home he shared with his wife and children. For Josephine, that was it, the final straw. She had reached her limit. Wayne, on the other hand, didn't hesitate. Almost as soon as his first marriage ended, he married Chata. To him, it felt like the beginning of something new, something passionate, something real. He believed he had found his happily ever after. He couldn't have been more wrong. Wayne later described their relationship as like shaking 2 volatile chemicals in a jar. It was explosive, unpredictable, and always on the edge of boiling over. Their love burned hot, but it also burned dangerously. At first, Wayne was drawn to Chata's fiery personality, but that same intensity quickly turned into something darker. She was deeply jealous, constantly suspicious, and increasingly controlling. She hated when Wayne spent time with his children and lived in a near constant fear that he was cheating on her. To be fair, he hadn't exactly given her much reason to trust him. One night, everything came to a head. Wayne had been out partying, enjoying the nightlife that came with his fame. Meanwhile, Chata sat at home, her thoughts spiraling. The longer he stayed out, the worse it became. She convinced herself that he was with another woman, reliving every betrayal she believed he was capable of. By the time Wayne finally returned home in the early hours of the morning, Chata had completely lost control. He walked through the door, slightly drunk, expecting a quiet house. Instead, he was met with a chilling sight. There she was, wide awake in the middle of the night, holding a gun pointed directly at him. It's one of the most shocking moments in Wayne's personal history. No one knows exactly what was said or how the situation de-escalated, but somehow it didn't end in tragedy. The gun was never fired. Wayne walked away alive. But their marriage didn't survive. After 9 years of emotional highs and destructive lows, their relationship finally collapsed. And really, after something like that, there was no coming back from it. They filed for divorce, but this wasn't going to be the clean, quiet split Wayne had experienced before. Chata had no intention of fading into the background. What followed became one of the biggest scandals of his career. Despite being one of the most beloved figures in America, Wayne suddenly found his reputation under attack. Chata publicly accused him of infidelity, emotional abuse, and even physical violence. It was messy, dramatic, and impossible to ignore. Wayne didn't stay silent. He fired back, claiming that Chata was a heavy drinker who would fall on her own and then accuse him of pushing her. It turned into a bitter, very public war of words. But the situation took another twist during the divorce proceedings. It was revealed that Chata had been having an affair of her own with Conrad Hilton Jr., a wealthy Playboy figure. The revelation only added fuel to an already explosive situation. By the time the divorce was finalized, the entire ordeal had left a stain on Wayne's carefully crafted image. You might think that after something like that, he'd take a step back. Maybe spend some time alone, away from relationships and drama. But that wasn't who John Wayne was. He didn't stay single for long. In fact, he was already looking ahead. Work became his escape. During this period, Wayne traveled to Peru to scout locations for an upcoming film. It was meant to be business, but it quickly turned into something else. While visiting a local set, he noticed a woman performing a sultry dance by firelight. She moved with confidence, grace, and just enough mystery to capture his attention instantly. When the scene ended, the director introduced them. Wayne studied her for a moment, then casually remarked, "That was quite a dance." What happened after that is mostly lost to history. But it didn't take long for things to escalate. Her name was Pilar Palete. And in that moment, Wayne believed he had found his next great love. The only problem, he was still married to Chata. That didn't stop him. Wayne began a passionate affair with Pilar, convinced she was the one. And the very day his divorce from Chata was finally made official, he was already ready to begin the next chapter of his life, with a new woman waiting in the wings. John Wayne and Pilar Palete wasted no time. The moment his divorce was finalized, the two of them were married. For Pilar, it must have felt like stepping straight into a fairy tale, falling in love with one of the biggest stars in the world and being swept into the glamour of Hollywood. But it didn't take long for her to realize that fairy tales and real life are two very different things. Moving to Hollywood wasn't the dream she had imagined. The culture, the pressure, the constant spotlight, it all became overwhelming. Everything was louder, faster, and far more demanding than anything she had known before. The stress began to creep in quietly at first, showing up in restless nights and growing anxiety. Eventually, she turned to sleeping pills, just looking for a way to get some rest. But those pills came with a cost. What started as a simple solution quickly became something much darker. Pilar found herself relying on them more and more, slipping into an addiction without fully realizing it. And instead of stability, her life only became more chaotic. Wayne insisted that she stay by his side at all times, dragging her from one filming location to another, never giving her the space to recover or breathe. The constant movement, the exhaustion, and the dependency on the pills all began to take their toll. Then everything reached a breaking point. While on location in Louisiana, Pilar took too many pills. Disoriented and hallucinating, she lost touch with reality. In that fragile, dangerous state, she slit her own wrists. It was a devastating moment, a clear sign that she had reached absolute rock bottom. And yet, even then, John Wayne's response was telling. If you listen to the stories of the women in his life, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Work always came first, always. Even in a moment this serious, when his wife was in desperate need of care and support, Wayne didn't stop. He arranged for nurses to escort Pilar back to California, and then he went right back to filming, carrying on as if nothing had happened. It's a stark contrast to the larger-than-life hero he portrayed on screen. John Wayne may have been a romantic in his own way, but he was far from a Prince Charming, and his personal habits didn't make things any easier. Wayne was known for heavy drinking and constant smoking. It wasn't unusual for him to drink on set, and cigarettes were a near constant presence in his life. For years, it seemed like nothing could slow him down, but eventually, those habits caught up with him. In 1964, Wayne received devastating news. He had lung cancer. The diagnosis came late, and the situation was serious. The cancer had already progressed to an advanced stage by the time doctors discovered it. There was no easy solution. If he was going to survive, it would take something drastic. In the end, surgeons removed 4 ribs and his entire left lung. It was an intense, life-altering procedure. But against the odds, it worked. Just 10 days later, doctors declared him cancer-free. For most people, an experience like that would be a wake-up call, a reason to slow down, to rethink everything. But John Wayne wasn't most people. He went right back to his old habits, continuing to smoke, only this time switching from cigarettes to cigars, as if that somehow made a difference. Now approaching 60, with one lung and a body that had already endured so much, Wayne refused to change. And somehow, incredibly, his career was far from over. In fact, some of his biggest achievements were still ahead of him. Despite being one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars, there was one thing he had never received, an Academy Award. For all his fame, that golden statue had always remained just out of reach. Then came the role that would finally change everything. In True Grit, Wayne took on the character of Rooster Cogburn, a grizzled, hard-edged U.S. Marshal who felt like a perfect reflection of the man himself. It was the kind of role he had been building toward his entire career. And this time, the Academy couldn't ignore him. John Wayne finally won his Oscar, the only one of his entire career. But even as his professional life reached new heights, the world around him was shifting. During the height of his fame, anti-communist sentiment swept across America, shaping the political and cultural landscape of the time. As John Wayne's fame reached its peak, so did his involvement in politics, particularly during one of the most controversial periods in American history. The era of Joseph McCarthy and the House Un-American Activities Committee brought fear and suspicion to Hollywood. It was a time often described as a witch hunt, where accusations alone could destroy careers, and paranoia spread like wildfire. Wayne didn't just quietly support these movements. he actively stood behind them. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, Hollywood operated under a shadow few openly acknowledged, the blacklist. Studios refused to hire individuals suspected of having communist sympathies, often without any real evidence. Careers vanished overnight, reputations were shattered, and creative voices were silenced. And the system only worked because powerful figures enforced it. John Wayne was one of them. He openly refused to work with anyone labeled un-American, helping keep the blacklist alive and influential. To many Americans, especially those who shared his views, this only strengthened his image as a patriotic hero. But to others, it painted a far more troubling picture, one of a man willing to support a system that ruined lives. His outspoken stance didn't go unnoticed internationally either. Wayne's intense anti-communist rhetoric reportedly even drew the attention of Joseph Stalin, with rumors suggesting that assassination plots against him were considered, though nothing ever came of them. Politics clearly mattered deeply to Wayne, and he never shied away from sharing his opinions. Unfortunately, some of those opinions would later come back to haunt his legacy. In a 1971 interview with Playboy, Wayne made a series of statements that shocked many, even by the standards of the time. While discussing the Vietnam War, he voiced strong support for American involvement. But the conversation quickly shifted into far more controversial territory. When asked about social issues in America, Wayne expressed views that have since been widely condemned. He openly spoke in favor of white supremacy and made deeply offensive claims about Native Americans, suggesting that they were at fault for losing their land. In recent years, these comments have resurfaced, sparking renewed debate about how John Wayne should be remembered. Was he simply a product of his time, or do these statements reveal something more fundamental about who he was? His defenders argue that his words were taken out of context, but for many, the damage is hard to ignore. Despite the controversies, Wayne remained married to Pilar Palet until the end of his life, even though the two had separated years earlier. In his later years, he spent most of his time with his former secretary, Pat Stacey, who stayed by his side. Interestingly, Wayne never finalized a divorce or remarried. He simply carried on as things were. Pilar, however, never completely turned her back on him. After his death, she published a memoir in which she reflected on their relationship. In her words, Wayne was 80% a good man, but it's that remaining 20% that tells the story we've been exploring. And when it comes to the women in his life, some suffered far more than others. Among them, Esperanza Bauer, Chata, arguably faced the most tragic end. Even during their marriage, it was clear she struggled with instability and emotional turmoil. The explosive arguments, the jealousy, and of course, the night she pointed a gun at Wayne. It all painted a picture of a deeply troubled relationship. But after the divorce, things only got worse. Without Wayne in her life, Chata seemed to lose whatever grounding she had left. She spiraled, both emotionally and physically, until eventually she found herself alone in a hotel room in Mexico. There, she locked herself inside and drank herself to death. She was just 40 years old. It's a haunting end to a story already filled with pain. Throughout his life, John Wayne made countless decisions, some that built his legend and others that cast long shadows over it. But if there was one regret that seemed to linger with him, it was tied to a film he rarely wanted to talk about. That film was The Conqueror. In it, Wayne played Genghis Khan, a role that even at the time raised eyebrows. Looking back, Wayne himself admitted it was a mistake. He once said the moral of the experience was simple. Don't make a fool of yourself by taking on roles you're not suited for. And honestly, if you've ever seen clips from that film, it's hard to argue with him. Despite everything, the scandals, the controversies, the complicated personal life, John Wayne remains one of the most recognizable and influential figures in Hollywood history. His legacy is undeniable, but it's also deeply layered, filled with both admiration and criticism. And maybe that's what makes his story so compelling. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of John Wayne, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories just like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.